On June 5, 2006, 3 maintenance workers were killed and a 4th was seriously injured in a violent explosion during a welding operation at a rural oil production field in Raleigh, Mississippi. The field was operated by Partridge Raleigh, a company that specializes in recovering oil from older, dormant wells. All the victims worked for Stringer's Oilfield Services, an independent contractor hired by Partridge Raleigh to install tanks and piping at the site. The following animation shows how unsafe work practices and a lack of training led to a tragic loss of life at the Partridge Raleigh oil field. The oil field had 4 tanks. 1 was for wastewater, 2 were storage tanks that held oil prior to sale, and a 4th larger tank, a so-called production tank, received oil from the well. A Stringer's Oilfield Services crew arrived and began work to connect a pipe between the large production tank and the nearest storage tank. To prepare for welding, contract workers removed the hatch from the large production tank to clean and air it out. They then checked for remaining flammable hydrocarbons in the tank by using an unsafe and unreliable technique, inserting a lit oxyacetylene torch to check for a flash from ignition. The big tank was in fact empty, but crude oil remained inside one of the storage tanks, warming under the morning sun. Unseen by the workers, flammable vapor from the crude oil was flowing from that tank into the other storage tank through an overflow line, and then out into the atmosphere through an uncapped 3-inch pipe. This open pipe end was just 4 feet away from where they planned to weld. In order to provide a platform for the welder, a ladder was placed horizontally between the 2 tanks. To stabilize the ladder, 2 workers stood on top of one end. A foreman observed the work from atop the production tank. The welder, who was perched on the ladder but wore a safety harness secured to the tank, began by making 2 small welds to a pipe fitting. Sparks showered from the welding process, igniting the flammable vapor that was escaping from the open pipe end. Flames flashed back through the open pipe into the storage tank, causing an explosion which blew off the tank lid and the ladder that 3 of the workers were standing on. Flames shot through the overflow pipe into the next tank, causing an even more violent explosion from the flammable hydrocarbons inside and blowing its lid off as well. The first tank lid flew a distance of 50 feet. The other traveled 750 feet through the air.
2 workers that were standing atop tank number 3 and 1 that was standing atop tank number 4 were blown off by the force of the explosion. They suffered fatal injuries as a result.
Only the welder, who had been wearing a safety harness, survived, but he suffered a broken hip and ankle. Prior to welding, workers only tested for the presence of hydrocarbons by inserting a lit acetylene torch into the production tank. The workers did not use a flammable gas detector to test for vapor, which could have warned them that dangerous vapor was flowing out of the open pipe near where they planned to perform welding. Another unsafe practice was not capping the open pipe, especially important since all the tanks were interconnected, and one contained a significant amount of crude oil. The CSB report also noted that the use of a makeshift work platform, the ladder braced by workers standing on top of the storage tank, unnecessarily put these 2 men in harm's way. They died when they fell from the exploding tank. The American Petroleum